Greetings, brethren, CloakingDonkey here with another top 5 on the MMORPG genre, and today I wish to present to you my top 5 favorite MMORPG tank classes. I personally am a tank player, I love tanks, and if an MMORPG has good tank classes, then you can be certain that I will be playing them. And even if they're not that great, I will still probably be playing them, because that's just how being a tank player works. But anyway, let's get to it, and remember that this is my favorite top 5. If you like other tank classes in the MMORPG genre, be sure to let me know in the comments, so we can have a cool little discussion about it, and why you prefer other classes to the ones I present here. But let us start this off with number 5, EverQuest 2's Monk. Yes, already you can see in the background this class, which I think is really damn cool. Now, EverQuest 2 has changed quite a lot over the last 10 or so years that it has been out, and there are a lot of numbers on the screen now, which is not necessarily something I'm used to, with the orange numbers being damage and the yellow numbers being threat. Still, there's a lot of these numbers. Anyway, I really like this tank class because it is so very different. Usually, monk type characters or brawlers or anything that's sort of a hand-to-hand type class is generally DPS, right? In most other games, you would expect this sort of class to be a damage dealer or just a pure-up DPS class, depending on the style of your MMO. But not so in EverQuest 2. Now, amongst the tank classes in EverQuest 2, the monk and its mirror, the brawler, are certainly the higher DPS dealing tank classes that the game has to offer. But they are certainly undoubtedly tanks still, because they have the tank heroic opportunities, they have the tank taunts and defensive abilities and all this other stuff that you need to do good tanking. Now, I will certainly also admit that for the longest time, the monk certainly hasn't been the most popular tanking class when it comes to the meta game. Concerning the meta, the monk is usually one of the least popular tanks. There are always some encounters per raid where monks are really powerful and wanted, but most of the time they kind of, well, aren't. Most of the time it's all about berserkers, guardians, shadow knights and paladins, and the brawlers and monks are usually a little bit less wanted. But nevertheless, this isn't the list about metagame and what is flavor of the month and, you know, the best tank. This is the coolest tank list, alright? This is what I like in tanks, and I think the monk in EverQuest 2 is certainly awesome, has a lot of really cool abilities, and it has a really cool set of alternate advancements as well, where you can become the Tiger Shifu and the Crane Master and all this sort of cool stuff. And when I was still playing EverQuest 2 actively during the Rise of Kunark expansion, the monk certainly was one of my favorite classes, and I'm always going to have a soft spot for it in my heart. At number 4, we have World of Warcraft's Feral Druid, and some of you might say, how come World of Warcraft only made it to rank 4? Well, this isn't a list about the actual game, remember, this is a list about the classes. And I do think that when it comes to tanking classes in World of Warcraft, the Feral Druid is certainly the coolest, but when it comes to the other tanking classes in World of Warcraft, they're all just a little bit too generic for my taste. Yes, the monk can also tank in World of Warcraft, but that hasn't been in for very long, and I don't really enjoy the monk very much in World of Warcraft. I think it's a bit too gimmicky, and I don't really think the tanking is that fun, as most of the time you're really just throwing that stupid keg at people, and that's really all you're doing. So I chose the Feral Druid because I really think that the ability to shapeshift into a bear and then, you know, scratch and claw your way to victory as a mighty tank for your group is just awesome. Also, the Feral Druid has been around for so very long. I know it's now called the Guardian Druid, but yeah, the Bear Druid has always been a fan favorite, and even back in vanilla World of Warcraft I played a Druid. I didn't tank as much as I healed because it wasn't quite as good, but the tank Druid has always very much had a place in my heart. I love this class, I think it's really awesome, and it's certainly one of the cooler versions that you can have of a tank. Because to be honest, Druid is such a vague definition that most games have their own version of Druids. In EverQuest 2, for example, Druids are healers. And so because it is rather unique in a way, it is certainly a class that had to make this list. And at number 3, we have the power tech specialization of the bounty hunter in Star Wars: The Old Republic. Star Wars: The Old Republic is a game I didn't play all too long, and when I played it a Jedi Knight, so I never really got to play my power tech very much. But I certainly enjoy this class a lot. I think as far as tank designs go, this is just really cool, because you use a lot of flamethrowers and missiles and ion cannons and rocket launchers and all this other cool techie, gadgety stuff, and you are a full-fledged tank doing all of those things. It's just something that most games won't give you, obviously, because most games are also very much fantasy focused and not sci-fi or sci-fantasy as Star Wars is. But as far as tanking classes go, the power tech is just special. And not just because it's a gun-toting tank. I mean, there is another gun-toting tank in Star Wars: The Old Republic, namely the Trooper. But I just don't think that the Trooper tank is quite as interesting as the power tech. The power tech just has all these gadgets, and that's really what makes the class so awesome. Because from a tanking mechanics perspective, I actually think that both the Trooper tank and the power tech tank kind of lose out a bit to the Jedi Knight and the Sith Warrior. But on a flair and coolness point, they all can't hold a beat to the power tech, who is just the coolest. In second place, we have the Knight of the Blazing Sun from Warhammer Online. Now, I will say right away that if you disagree with this specifically on the class, then that's totally fine, because honestly, all of the tanks in Warhammer Online could easily be on this second place. I think all of the tank classes in Warhammer Online are fantastic. They're awesome, they're really fun, and I specifically just chose the Knight of the Blazing Sun because it's my favorite. I just love it. It's my favorite. It looks really awesome, has this glorious golden ornate armor with all the feathers and such, and the sun symbol emblazoned on everything. And you literally order your group mates around. It's just a tank I really appreciate. And I'm sure you're gonna say, it's just a paladin in a different coat, and yeah, maybe it is. But it's the one I chose, and the thing I love the most about the Knight of the Blazing Sun is that ridiculous knockback it has when you equip the knockbacking tactic. Oh, how glorious that was when I played it, and I hope to get my current Knight of the Blazing Sun to that point as well again, because knocking people back that far is just very, very funny. But overall, tanks in Warhammer Online are absolutely fantastic, and this goes for all of them. The Ironbreaker, the Swordmaster, the Chosen, the Black Orc, and the Blackguard, they are all fantastic and great tank classes. And it's just because tanking has been made important in Warhammer Online. They did a really good job of taking tanks and turning them into something that's actually viable on the field of battle. And they did it by just making them hyper annoying. You can protect your teammates and take damage that's meant for them and put it onto yourself. Which doesn't bother you at all because you're a tank, you're hyper mitigation, so it's really just absorbing a whole bunch of damage that one of your party members, presumably a squishier party member, was going to take. Especially when you guard, as it's called, a squishy group member like a wizard or a healer, you just become invaluable in Warhammer Online. It's absolutely great. You take half of their damage, it doesn't bother you at all, and the enemy all of a sudden has so much of a harder time to actually kill the person they were trying to kill. On top of that, you have pretty much all of the crowd control in the game. You have knockbacks and snares and stuns and attack speed debuffs and all sorts of other debuffs and annoying crowd control effects that are going to be so obnoxious for your enemy that they simply can't help but sometimes just attack you out of pure rage. Seriously, playing a tank in Warhammer Online has always been a blast, and I really, really enjoy them. And as such, they collectively deserve spot 2, although I specifically gave it to the Knight. And then at number 1 comes the Warden class from Lord of the Rings Online. Now, whether or not you like Lord of the Rings Online, that really doesn't matter, but the class is just... When it comes to standard tap targeting, hotbar MMORPGs, the Warden is probably the best class I have ever played in one of these games. Even if you count in other classes, it is just so fantastic the way it is built up. First of all, of course, it's a class with a spear and a shield, and javelins, of course, but the spear and shield thing is just so important. It makes this class so cool, and I really, really wish more games would have spears and shields as their weapons, and not just stupid two-handed pikes. And how this class works and what makes it so incredibly unique is that it works on a combo system. So they've basically turned a standard hotbar MMO into more of a combo-based game. Except you don't do the combo on your mouse clickies, you do them on your keyboard. The way it works is you have a standard spear attack, a standard shield bash attack, and a standard shout attack. And you use these in sequence to build up certain combo actions, which will then replace your gambit gauge. As you can see in the bottom right, there is a gambit gauge type thing where when I use a spear attack, a red spear symbol appears. When I use the shield attack, a green shield symbol appears, and the shout attack makes a yellow shout symbol. And then when I have a certain number of them done, it turns into these special attacks. And these special attacks are really how you do most of your damage, most of your aggro, and most of your mitigation on the Warden. Also in this footage I fuck up my gambits constantly because I'm completely out of practice with this class, so please don't be too harsh on me, thank you very much. However, I absolutely love this system. I think it's really great because it gives you so many options in combat, but it also means that you kind of have to be on your feet all the time and you have to really think and plan ahead because your big aggro generating abilities, your big damage abilities are going to be 3 to 5 global cooldowns in the future, and you have to get there first and get them out and really plan out the fight that way, and I find that so interesting. When you're in a DPS role as the Warden, by the way, you use your Javelin now, which is so very cool, and you'll see it in the video as well, where I just javelin my little heart out because, it's just so awesome. The Warden is certainly one of my favorite classes that I've ever played in a hotbar-based MMORPG. And this, I must add, in a game that has combat I actually don't really like that much. When it comes to hotbar combat, which certainly is the way I prefer it in MMORPGs, I think SWTOR is one of the weaker ones because it has really long global cooldowns and the abilities have animation locks and it just doesn't flow very well and just feels very clunky. But the Warden makes something out of this combat system that I would play in any other game as well. It is so incredibly cool and so much fun. When it comes to the flow of the combat system, I certainly prefer games like World of Warcraft and especially Age of Conan. But just class-wise, the Warden is absolutely fantastic, and I really hope that we'll see more classes like this in other games in the future. Especially classes that use spear and shield. Please, developers, please put in classes that use spears and shields at the same time. It is just so much cooler than just having a stupid two-handed spear and just having shield and sword all the time. But that is not the topic of this video. Thank you very much for watching, and as I said, if you have a different opinion on which the top tank classes in the MMORPG genre are, do let me know down in the comments because I'm certainly interested to see what other people think. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking it and also consider subscribing to my channel, and do head over to twitch.tv/CloakingDonkey and follow me there because I do try to stream as often as possible and we always have a really good time when I do. But until then, I've been the CloakingDonkey and I'll see you in another video!